Every single person walking this earth is already brainwashed. But the tragedy is that most people don't even realize it. From the moment you were born, your mind has been under constant programming. Society tells you what is possible, what is not, what you should fear, what you should expect, and what you should accept. Family, teachers, friends, and the world around you pour beliefs into your subconscious without asking for your permission. These beliefs take root deep inside you, and over time they harden into invisible chains that hold you back. You begin to live not by your own vision, but by the mental blueprint created by others. You are told to play safe, to keep your head down, to never dream too big, and without knowing it, you start repeating those lies to yourself until they become your reality. But there is another path. The same way you were unconsciously brainwashed into limitation, you can consciously brainwash yourself into success. This is not manipulation. It is mastery. It is the act of taking control of the thoughts that dominate your mind and using them to shape your future. Success is never an accident. It is not about luck or chance. Success is manufactured, engineered, and built inside the mind long before it shows up in the physical world. If your thoughts are poisoned with doubt, fear, and failure, then your actions will reflect those poisons. But if your thoughts are programmed with strength, courage, and certainty, then everything you do will carry the power of that belief. The mind is like fertile soil. Whatever is planted will grow, whether it is weeds or flowers. If you leave it unattended, weeds of fear and weakness will take over. But if you consciously plant the seeds of success and water them every single day, they will grow into unstoppable power. To brainwash yourself for success means to take full control over what you allow to grow inside that soil. It means rejecting the old lies that told you weren't good enough, weren't smart enough, weren't worthy enough, and replacing them with truths that build you, strengthen you, and push you forward. Some people hear the word brainwashing and think it is negative. They imagine control from the outside, as if someone is forcing beliefs into your mind. But when you take charge of your own brainwashing, it becomes the highest form of freedom. Because true freedom is not doing whatever you want in the moment. True freedom is mastering the one thing that controls everything else, your mind. When you choose what you repeat to yourself, when you choose the thoughts you will entertain, when you choose the images you allow to play in your head, you break the prison of external control and step into self-mastery. Think about it. Every great achievement that has ever been created started first as a thought in the mind of someone who refused to be brainwashed by limitations. They brainwashed themselves to believe in the impossible. They repeated to themselves over and over again that success was certain, that victory was inevitable, until their entire being aligned with that truth. And when the mind accepts something as true, the body follows, the actions follow, the results follow. The greatest power you have is not money, not resources, not even opportunity. Your greatest power is the ability to choose what you will believe about yourself and about your future. If you allow the world to brainwash you, you will remain average, trapped, and small. But if you decide today to brainwash yourself for success, you set in motion a transformation that no force on earth can stop. You will begin to think differently, speak differently, act differently, and eventually live differently. So understand this. Brainwashing is not optional if you want greatness. You are already brainwashed, either by your fears, by your past, or by your environment. The only question is, will you continue to live under the old programming? Or will you take the power back and reprogram your mind for success? The choice is yours. Every form of success begins in the mind. Before wealth, before recognition, before any victory in life, there is always a thought that sparks it into existence. The truth is, Everything you see around you, buildings, inventions, companies, even entire nations, once lived only in someone's imagination. The human mind is the most powerful factory in existence, and it produces results according to the raw materials you feed it. If you feed it fear, it will manufacture excuses. If you feed it weakness, it will deliver failure. But if you feed it confidence, faith, and determination, it will create strategies, persistence, and results. That is why success never begins outside of you. It is born inside the quiet space of your mind. Your subconscious mind, the deeper part of you that runs your habits and your automatic behaviors, accepts repetition as truth. It cannot tell the difference between reality and belief. If you constantly repeat to yourself that you are not good enough, not ready, or not capable, your subconscious will accept it as a command and shape your behavior to match that false story. You will sabotage opportunities, avoid risks, and shrink in the face of challenges because your subconscious believes you are not supposed to win. On the other hand, if you repeatedly tell yourself that you are destined for greatness, if you affirm daily that success is yours, your subconscious will adapt to those commands. It will direct your actions, sharpen your instincts, and push you toward the fulfillment of that vision. This is why the mind becomes the battlefield where success or failure is decided long before the world ever sees your results. What you repeat becomes your reality. Think about how many people are stuck in cycles of failure, not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because they have been programmed to expect little from life. They wake up each morning rehearsing old doubts, repeating old failures, and expecting nothing to change. That mental repetition becomes a prophecy that fulfills itself. The subconscious is always listening, always obeying, always shaping. If you tell it you are weak, it will strip your strength. If you tell it you are strong, it will summon power you didn't know you had. If you tell it you are unstoppable, it will begin to create in you the qualities that make you unstoppable. You must understand that success is not something you chase. It is something you attract by the person you become in your mind first. The inner image you carry of yourself will either lift you to greatness or bury you in mediocrity. You cannot think failure all day and expect to live victory. You cannot plant seeds of weakness and expect to harvest strength. The subconscious is neutral. It will give you whatever you demand of it. The question is, what are you demanding each day? Are you demanding more excuses, or are you commanding it to deliver success? Once you take control of this process and choose consciously what to repeat, success becomes inevitable because the mind, once trained, refuses to lose. The first step to brainwashing yourself for success is to take control of the inner dialogue that runs inside your mind every single day. Whether you notice it or not, you are constantly speaking to yourself. There is a voice that narrates your life, a voice that comments on your actions, a voice that whispers when you succeed, and a voice that screams when you fail. For most people, that voice is poisoned. It repeats the criticisms they have heard from others, it amplifies their fears, it magnifies their insecurities, and it convinces them that they are not capable of more. That voice becomes a prison, and unless you take control of it, it will sabotage you at every step. The inner dialogue is powerful because the subconscious mind cannot ignore it. Every time you call yourself weak, lazy, or unlucky, your subconscious accepts it as a command. Every time you say you cannot do something, it registers that instruction and shapes your behavior accordingly. Over time, these inner conversations create an identity. If your inner dialogue is filled with self-doubt, you will unconsciously live as a person who doubts. If it is filled with fear, you will unconsciously live as a person who avoids risk. But if your inner dialogue is filled with certainty, courage, and faith, you will live as a person who expects to win. That is why mastering your inner dialogue is not optional. It is the foundation of self-brainwashing. To take control of this voice, you must first become aware of it. Most people let their inner dialogue run unchecked, repeating destructive phrases without ever realizing the damage they are causing themselves. The first act of mastery is to listen carefully to the words you are saying silently in your mind. Once you hear them clearly, you can begin to change them. Instead of allowing the voice to say, "I can't," you replace it with, "I can and I will." Instead of letting it whisper, "I'm not ready," you command it to say, "I am prepared and growing stronger every day." Each replacement is a brick in the foundation of a new identity. The more you repeat empowering dialogue, the more your subconscious accepts it as truth, and the more your actions begin to reflect that truth. This is not about lying to yourself. It is about choosing the language that shapes your future. If you continually allow negative self-talk, you are lying to yourself about your weakness. If you continually replace it with empowering commands, you are aligning yourself with the truth of your potential. Every great person mastered this process. They did not allow their inner dialogue to dictate their destiny. They dictated their inner dialogue to align with their destiny. You must do the same. Speak to yourself as a leader, as a warrior, as a winner, because eventually the voice you choose to repeat becomes the voice that defines your life. Repetition is the language of the subconscious, and affirmations are the tools you use to speak that language with power. When you declare something out loud with conviction, you are sending a message directly to the deepest part of your mind. At first, it may feel strange, even uncomfortable, because your current beliefs may not match the words you are speaking. But with repetition, the subconscious does not question. It accepts. If you declare every morning and every night that you are strong, capable, and destined for success, your subconscious will begin to believe it. Once it believes, it will align your habits, your emotions, and your decisions to make it real. That is the power of affirmation. It programs your inner world until it becomes your outer world. Think of affirmations as instructions you give to your brain. Every thought you repeat is a command, and the brain is obedient. If you say to yourself over and over again, "I am a failure," the subconscious takes that as an order and looks for ways to make it true. If you say, "I am unstoppable," the subconscious begins to search for proof, for opportunities, for actions that confirm that identity. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you repeatedly tell yourself you already are. Affirmations work because they bypass doubt through repetition. The conscious mind may resist at first, but the subconscious cannot resist what it hears and feels consistently. Some people dismiss affirmations as simple words, but that is because they do not understand the science behind them. The brain is built on neural pathways, and the more often a thought is repeated, the stronger that pathway becomes. Over time, it becomes the default route for your mind, meaning you automatically think and feel in alignment with that belief. When you affirm daily, you are carving new roads in your brain, roads that lead to confidence, courage, and determination. Without affirmations, your mind takes the old roads of doubt and fear because they have been used for years. With affirmations, you force the brain to build highways that lead only to victory. Affirmations must be spoken with emotion. Words without feeling carry no power. If you stand in front of a mirror and declare with fire in your voice, "I am powerful, I am focused, I am destined to win," those words penetrate deep into the subconscious like seeds planted in fertile ground. The more you plant, the more your inner garden grows. Affirmations turn weakness into strength, confusion into clarity, and hesitation into confidence. You don't wait until you feel powerful to declare it. You declare it until you feel powerful. That is how repetition transforms identity, and once your identity shifts, success becomes the only possible outcome. If you want to brainwash yourself for success, you must guard your mind with the same seriousness a warrior guards his most valuable treasure. Your subconscious mind does not filter, it absorbs. Every conversation you hear, every piece of gossip you entertain, every story of failure or limitation that you allow into your awareness seeps into your inner world. Most people fail not because they lack the ability to rise, but because they constantly expose their minds to poison. They listen to negative voices, they watch messages filled with fear, they surround themselves with people who speak only of weakness and doubt. Day by day, those poisons sink in and reprogram their minds to expect defeat. If you do not guard your mind, you will become a victim of whatever environment you live in. Think of your mind as a castle. If you leave the gates wide open, anyone can enter. Thieves, enemies, and destroyers of hope. They do not need your permission. They simply walk in, and once they are inside, they burn down your dreams from the inside out. Guarding your mind means you control those gates. You decide what comes in and what stays out. Every time you refuse to listen to negativity, every time you cut off toxic voices, every time you reject doubt-filled conversations, you are protecting the castle. You are defending the future you are building. Without this discipline, no amount of affirmations or visualization can survive, because poison will always destroy what you are trying to grow. Guarding your mind also requires courage, because often the poison comes from those closest to you. Friends, family, co-workers, they may not mean harm, but their words are saturated with fear. They tell you to stay small because they have stayed small. They warn you against risk because they fear risk. If you are not careful, their fears become your beliefs. To brainwash yourself for success, you must have the strength to distance yourself from those voices when necessary. Protecting your mental environment is not cruelty, it is survival. You cannot climb while carrying the weight of other people's limitations on your back. Success demands focus, and focus cannot survive in a polluted environment. Just as you would not drink dirty water and expect to stay healthy, you cannot feed your mind with toxic thoughts and expect to stay strong. Every piece of information you consume is either building you or breaking you. Guard your mind fiercely. Be deliberate about the books you read, the words you repeat, the people you spend time with, and the energy you allow into your space. Because once your subconscious is clean, free from poison, every new belief you plant will grow faster, stronger, and deeper. And when the garden of your mind is free of weeds, success is not just possible, it is inevitable. Your mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. This is why visualization is one of the most powerful ways to reprogram yourself for success. When you deliberately create mental pictures of the future you desire and replay them again and again, your subconscious accepts them as reality. It begins to align your emotions, your energy, and your actions with that picture, even if you have not yet achieved it. The world outside may tell you it is impossible, but when your inner world has already lived the success in detail, it becomes inevitable. Visualization allows you to build the life you want before you ever touch it with your hands. Think of your imagination as a projector and your mind as the screen. Every day, you are projecting something. For most people, that projection is filled with fear, failure, and worst-case scenarios. They imagine losing, they imagine embarrassment, they imagine everything going wrong, and so they program their subconscious to act as if defeat is already guaranteed. But you can flip the projection. You can choose to play movies of victory, success, and unstoppable growth. You can imagine yourself stronger, wealthier, healthier, more powerful than you have ever been. If you see it clearly, if you play it often, your mind begins to accept it as truth, and soon your body, your behavior, and your habits move to bring that vision to life. This practice is not fantasy. It is preparation. Athletes visualize winning before they step on the field. Leaders visualize their victories before they speak their first word. Inventors visualize solutions before they build the first prototype. The mind rehearses the success in advance, and when the moment arrives, it feels familiar. It feels natural. What once seemed impossible now feels like destiny, because you have already lived it 1,000 times within your imagination. That is the essence of visualization. It gives you permission to live the future before it happens, until the world has no choice but to catch up to the picture you have already built inside yourself. To brainwash yourself for success through visualization, you must be consistent. Once or twice is not enough. Every day, close your eyes and see the life you are building. Feel the emotions of that success, the pride, the gratitude, the unshakable confidence. The more you feel it, the deeper it penetrates into your subconscious. Eventually, that vision will stop feeling like a dream and start feeling like your identity. And once your identity shifts, once you believe in your soul that this future is already yours, nothing in the external world can take it away. Visualization is not pretending. It is planting the future inside your mind until it grows into reality. The environment you live in is constantly shaping you, whether you notice it or not. The people you speak with, the voices you listen to, the energy that surrounds you, all of it programs your subconscious mind. You cannot brainwash yourself for success if your environment is filled with failure. Every word you hear plants a seed, every conversation waters it, and every influence around you becomes part of the soil in which your thoughts grow. If the soil is polluted, your dreams will never flourish. That is why one of the most powerful ways to program yourself for success is to deliberately create an environment that reflects the future you are building, not the past you are trying to escape. Look at the people you spend the most time with. Are they lifting you higher, or are they pulling you lower? The truth is, energy is contagious. If you are surrounded by those who complain, gossip, and doubt, their energy infects you. You begin to adopt their language, mirror their habits, and eventually inherit their limitations. But if you surround yourself with voices of strength, determination, and growth, you cannot help but rise. The subconscious mind adapts to its surroundings like water, takes the shape of its container. Change the container, and you change the shape of your life. That is why protecting and curating your environment is not a luxury. It is survival for anyone serious about success. Your environment is not only people, it is also what you feed your mind through books, audio, and information. If you spend your days consuming negativity, endless distractions, and destructive stories, you are allowing your subconscious to be programmed against you. But if you flood your environment with knowledge, empowering messages, and stories of victory, your mind absorbs that energy until it becomes your default state. To brainwash yourself for success, you must immerse your mind in a world where success feels normal, where ambition is expected, and where growth is celebrated. When your environment normalizes greatness, your subconscious cannot help but aim higher. This may require sacrifice. You may have to distance yourself from certain voices, even if they are familiar. You may have to leave behind environments that once felt comfortable, but are no longer serving your growth. It will not always be easy, but it is necessary. Because if your environment is filled with mediocrity, your subconscious will accept mediocrity as truth. But if you surround yourself with strength, wisdom, and ambition, your subconscious will be forced to rise to meet it. In the end, success is not only about what you do. It is also about where you live mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Build an environment of influence that aligns with your vision, and you will find that success begins to feel less like a struggle and more like the natural outcome of who you have become. Repetition is the law that governs the subconscious mind. Whatever you repeat, whether positive or negative, becomes programmed into your system until it operates without your permission. Habits are not born by accident, they are the children of repetition. When you do something once, it is a choice. When you do it 100 times, it becomes a pattern. When you do it 1,000 times, it becomes your nature. This is why repetition is the engine of both failure and success. Those who repeat weakness, excuses, and fear engrave those patterns so deeply that they live them without even thinking. But those who repeat strength, courage, and vision carve those qualities into their identity until they cannot help but act in alignment with them. The subconscious does not care whether the repetition builds you or destroys you. It simply obeys. If every day you say to yourself, "I am tired, I am not enough, life is unfair," then repetition cements those beliefs into your nervous system. You begin to live small, you begin to hesitate, and eventually you convince yourself that mediocrity is your destiny. But if every day you repeat, "I am powerful, I am focused, I am unstoppable," then repetition begins to burn those truths into the very structure of your brain. Soon they are no longer just words, they are instincts. Your subconscious begins to act as if those affirmations are undeniable fact, and your outer world starts to mirror that new inner code. This is why those who achieve greatness often seem unstoppable. It is not because they are superhuman. It is because they have programmed themselves so deeply with repetition that doubt no longer has a voice. They do not have to think about discipline, persistence, or resilience because those qualities have been trained into their subconscious through thousands of repetitions. Repetition creates grooves in the brain like rivers carving through stone. At first, the path is shallow and easy to erase. But as water flows day after day, year after year, it digs deep channels that cannot be removed. The same is true of your mind. Every repeated thought, every repeated belief, every repeated action digs a channel in your subconscious, and eventually you are carried along that channel effortlessly. To brainwash yourself for success, you must decide what channels you will carve with repetition. Will you repeat excuses until they become your identity? Or will you repeat power until it becomes your destiny? It does not happen overnight. The first days may feel forced, the first weeks may feel unnatural, but repetition has a magic that time cannot resist. Keep repeating the right thoughts long enough, and they become automatic. They become who you are. And once success is written into your subconscious through repetition, the fight is already won, because the mind will not allow you to live any other way. If you want to rise higher, you must first break free from the old programming that has kept you chained. Every person carries within them a set of beliefs that were not chosen but inherited beliefs about money, about success, about worth, about possibility. These beliefs are often born in childhood, reinforced by society, and repeated until they become invisible walls around your potential. You may want success, but if the old programming inside you whispers you are not meant for more, you will sabotage yourself again and again. Breaking this old programming is not easy because it feels familiar, and the human mind clings to familiarity even when it is destructive. But if you refuse to confront it, your future will always be limited by the lies of your past. The first step in breaking old programming is awareness. You must recognize the destructive patterns that have been running your life. Pay attention to the thoughts you repeat when you face challenges. Do you instantly assume failure? Do you tell yourself you are not worthy? Do you shrink back because you expect rejection? These are not truths, they are programs. They were installed in you by repetition, by negative voices, by past experiences that taught you to doubt yourself. The key to freedom is realizing that a program is not permanent. The brain is plastic. It bends, it adapts, it rewires itself when given new commands. What was written yesterday can be erased and replaced today if you are willing to put in the work. Breaking old programming also requires courage because it often means stepping into the unknown. Your mind will resist not because the old beliefs are correct, but because they are comfortable. The subconscious prefers what is familiar, even if it is painful. That is why people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, or habits that destroy them, because the old programming tells them it is safer to stay where they are. But comfort is a cage, and if you want to brainwash yourself for success, you must choose growth over comfort. You must decide that no belief, no matter how long you've carried it, has the right to define your future unless you allow it. Once you begin replacing old programming with new beliefs, everything changes. At first, the old voices will still whisper, trying to pull you back. But every time you reject them and replace them with stronger thoughts, the old patterns weaken. Every repetition of a new belief builds strength until the old one fades into nothing. Over time, you realize that the limits you thought were permanent were never real at all. They were just stories you told yourself. And when those stories break, a new identity is born, one that is not chained to the past, but free to rise into a future without limits. There is a secret to rewiring your mind for success that most people overlook. It is not simply positive thinking. It is not about ignoring reality and pretending everything is perfect. It is about the consistent, deliberate act of planting new beliefs into the soil of your subconscious until they grow into unshakable truths. The human brain does not care if what you repeat is true or false. It only responds to repetition and emotion. That is why lies can destroy people if they are repeated often enough. And that is also why empowering truths can rebuild a broken identity if they are impressed deeply enough. The mind is like a garden. If you do not choose what to plant, weeds will grow on their own. Those weeds are doubts, fears, excuses, and limitations. If you want your life to flourish, you must take control of the planting. You must choose what thoughts you allow to take root, because once rooted, they will shape your actions, your habits, and ultimately your destiny. This process of reprogramming requires persistence because the old programming does not vanish overnight. Imagine you are carving a new path through a dense forest. At first, the path is rough, filled with branches and obstacles. But every time you walk that path, it becomes clearer. Every time you return, the way becomes smoother, until one day it is wide and easy to travel. The old path, the one you used to take automatically, begins to fade because you no longer use it. This is exactly how new beliefs are built. Repetition is the machete that clears the way, and emotion is the fire that makes the new path permanent. That is why affirmations without emotion often fail. They lack the energy needed to impress the subconscious. But when you speak new truths with passion, when you visualize them vividly, when you act as if they are already real, the subconscious accepts them and begins to build your reality around them. The real danger lies in forgetting this principle and allowing yourself to drift back into old habits of thought. The subconscious does not stop working. It is always listening. If you fill it with thoughts of lack, it will create lack. If you feed it with images of success, courage, and determination, it will bend reality to align with them. The subconscious is neutral. It is not your friend or your enemy. It simply obeys, and if you do not give it a vision, it will continue to recycle the past. That is why people relive the same struggles year after year. They never reprogram the commands that run their lives. But when you take control and consistently feed it new commands, new possibilities open, you no longer live as a prisoner of your past, but as an architect of your future. There comes a point in the journey where mental repetition is not enough. To truly brainwash yourself for success, you must back your words and thoughts with relentless action. The subconscious is not only influenced by what you say or imagine, it is also shaped by what you do consistently. Every action is a signal to your brain that reinforces your identity. When you act with discipline, even in small ways, you teach your mind that you are someone who follows through. When you make promises to yourself and keep them, you prove that your words have power. When you push past resistance and choose courage over comfort, you rewire your brain to crave progress instead of ease. These actions, repeated over time, become powerful confirmations of the beliefs you are trying to install. Without action, your affirmations remain empty. With action, they become living proof. The mind learns fastest not from theories but from experience. And when your daily behavior matches the identity you want to create, transformation accelerates. Success is not built in sudden leaps, but in the quiet repetition of disciplined choices. Think of the person who wants to be fit. They can visualize health. They can speak affirmations. They can dream of strength. But until they show up to train and choose foods that nourish, the subconscious will never fully believe the story. The same is true in every domain of life. If you want wealth, you must not only repeat wealth, building thoughts, but also take consistent financial actions that align with abundance. If you want confidence, you must not only say you are confident, but also put yourself in situations that demand courage. Even when your heart races, this is where many fail. They want the mental change without the physical reinforcement. But the subconscious watches what you do more than what you say. It notices whether your actions confirm or contradict your affirmations, and it builds your reality accordingly. The greatest shift comes when your words, thoughts, and actions align. This is when brainwashing yourself for success becomes unstoppable. You tell yourself you are disciplined, and then you act with discipline. You say you are courageous, and then you step forward despite fear. You affirm that you are worthy of abundance, and then you handle money with respect and wisdom. Each alignment becomes another layer of reinforcement in your subconscious programming. Soon, what once felt forced becomes natural. The effort that once drained you becomes automatic. The resistance that once controlled you begins to fade, replaced by momentum. At this stage, success is no longer a dream or a wish. It becomes a new identity. And identity is the most powerful force in human psychology. You will always act in harmony with who you believe you are. Change the belief, back it with action, and you will change your destiny. One of the most overlooked ways to reprogram the mind is by controlling the environment you place yourself in. The subconscious is not only influenced by what you think and do, but also by what surrounds you every single day. The conversations you hear, the words you read, the images you look at, and the people you allow near you. All of these act like seeds planted in your mental soil. If you spend time around negativity, your mind will absorb it and replay it in your own inner dialogue. If you are constantly surrounded by mediocrity, your subconscious will normalize it. convincing you that average is acceptable. But if you expose yourself to voices of inspiration, stories of triumph, and environments that reflect excellence, your subconscious will adapt to that higher standard. This is why those who rise to greatness often change their circle, change their inputs, and change their surroundings. They understand that environment is stronger than willpower. No matter how strong your affirmations are, if your environment constantly contradicts them, the mind becomes divided and progress slows. The truth is that the human brain is wired to mirror what it repeatedly sees. If you spend time with disciplined people, you begin to mirror discipline. If you spend time with ambitious dreamers, you begin to mirror ambition. If you spend time with people who constantly complain, your subconscious starts to replay the same complaints. This mirroring effect can either be your downfall or your greatest weapon. If you intentionally design your environment with success triggers, you make brainwashing yourself effortless. Simple things like filling your space with empowering books, keeping reminders of your goals in visible places, or listening daily to voices that call you to greatness. All of these reinforce your mental programming without you even realizing it. Your environment silently whispers to your subconscious, and those whispers accumulate into powerful beliefs. When you understand this, you no longer see environment as something neutral. You see it as a tool, as a force you can use to mold your destiny. Instead of allowing random influences to shape your thoughts, you choose influences deliberately. You ask yourself, does this person, this habit, this space, align with the identity I want to create? If the answer is no, you cut it off. If the answer is yes, you immerse yourself in it fully. Over time, this selective exposure builds a world around you that constantly reinforces your affirmations, your actions, and your goals. At that point, brainwashing yourself for success becomes natural because every corner of your life points you in the same direction. You no longer fight against your environment. Your environment fights for you. And when your surroundings, your habits, and your thoughts all align, success is no longer just possible. It becomes inevitable. The ultimate step in brainwashing yourself for success is to embrace the truth that this is not a temporary practice, but a lifelong discipline. The mind does not stop absorbing, it does not stop learning, and it does not stop repeating. You are always programming yourself, whether you are aware of it or not. Every thought you allow, every word you repeat, every action you take, and every environment you choose is a command to your subconscious. This means you are never neutral. You are either moving toward the identity of greatness or drifting back into mediocrity. That is why consistency matters more than intensity. A few days of affirmations, a few bursts of action, or a few moments of discipline will not transform your life. But daily, unshakable consistency will. Just as water shapes stone not through one strike but through constant flow, so too does success come from steady repetition of empowering thoughts and actions until they become who you are. When you brainwash yourself with intention, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your destiny. You no longer wait for motivation to arrive. You create it from within. You no longer wait for opportunities to knock. You prepare so thoroughly that opportunities seek you out. This transformation is not magic. It is alignment. When your words, your thoughts, your actions, and your environment all point toward the same goal, the subconscious accepts that reality as fact and works tirelessly to make it true. You begin to notice new ideas, see new possibilities, attract new people, and create new outcomes, all because your inner programming has changed. What once felt impossible becomes normal. What once seemed far away feels inevitable. And at this stage, Success is not about forcing results. It becomes about maintaining alignment and protecting your mental garden from anything that would poison it. The true power of this journey lies in realizing that you can begin at any moment. No matter where you are, no matter what has happened in the past, the decision to reprogram your mind can be made right now. You do not need perfect conditions. You only need a commitment. You only need to decide that from this day forward, you will choose your thoughts, you will choose your words, you will choose your actions, and you will choose your environment with ruthless intention. From that decision, everything begins to change. Life bends to the strength of a reprogrammed mind, and success becomes not just something you achieve, but something you embody. That is the essence of brainwashing yourself for success. Not escaping reality, but creating a new one so powerfully that reality itself has no choice but to obey.